Thank you, Meredith. And so welcome everybody. Like Meredith introduced, my name is Rose. I work at a CCO as a senior career service consultant. And also I'm the liaison with a college engineer from our office. So today I will be talking to you a little bit more about competency, that is skills that employers are looking for and how to apply that to your job search experiences as well. I'll talk a bit more about the resources offered at a CCO. And it's really amazing to see that many of you are attending this session. And from my own experience attending so many conferences like webinars or meetings throughout the summer, I bet for you guys is going to classes and everything. Sometimes it's hard if you're just sitting there and listen, right? So I want to make that session, because we have this many people, it won't be too interactive to the way that you all get a chance to speak. But what I want to invite you to do is to try to find the best way to engage with the content. Don't feel that you need to remember everything I'm going to say in the next 25 minutes, because it probably will feel a little bit like, oh, I didn't get that part. Instead, as you're listening to the content of this presentation, I wanted to focus on, okay, how is this information that Rose is talking about is related to my experience as a student, as it relates to my experience, what kind of career jobs that I want to seek, right? So, okay, we'll keep meeting people. And if you have a question, what you can do is you can, if you all can look over your control bar, you can probably see the chat button, right? So if you have a question, you can type in your question, and you can either send it to everyone in the meeting, or you can send it to our host Carl or Ray. All right, and at the end, I'll try to go over the content fast, and then we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. And if you need more time, I'll stay after the session, and you feel free to go to the other practice room, but also I'll stay here for a little bit for extra Q&A that you will have. And like you are seeing from I guess everybody can see my slides okay, right? Okay, so as you're seeing from the slides today, I'm going to talk about competency and I'll talk about personal branding. And we're talking about this in the context of job search, right? We're not necessarily talking about if you have your own business and you're doing your personal branding. We're talking about your personal branding as a job seeker. And something that I'm not going to cover, but it's kind of related to personal branding and job seeking, like your online presence, your digital footprint, right? So when recruiters are hiring for candidates, hiring for employees, whether it's internship or full-time, as you approach more to the final rounds, before you get an offer, a lot of times employers do check candidates' social media. So you want to make sure that, your social media do reflect who you want yourself to be presented as a, future candidate for jobs, for the kind of job you want. So just that as kind of a quick reminder, this from a presentation I just had yesterday about the same topic, and participants bring that up. And so I'll probably pause every now and then, and Carl and Ray, feel free to, bring the questions to the discussion as you're receiving them from the chat. All right, first let's get started. Thinking about brand, right? So when you heard about the word brand, what are something that come to your mind, right? So what is a brand, and how do you come across brand in your daily life? Right, so think about a brand of a product or a kind of service that you really like, So what is a brand? How do you come across brand in your life? And then the second question I want to start to think about is to think about a favorite mentor or, a team member or your role model. Like, why do you like them? And how do you get to know them? And, and sometimes you might only have an encounter with a person for just a few times, and how do you remember about that person? So let's watch a very brief video together, talk about personal brand. All right, here we go.
is that you are a business of one. You don't think of yourself as an employee. You think of yourself as a business of one, a service provider, and your customer is an employer. You need a brand. All of the best companies out there have really identifiable brands. And if I was to ask you right now, what's your favorite brand? I know that you would not only be able to tell me right away, but you'd probably be able to tell me their slogan and why you love them. That's just an example of a company that's branded itself well. Well, we are no different. These days, it's very important that we brand ourselves, and that's because every job is temporary today. Gone are the days where you just went to a company and you worked there your entire life. And so if we ever hear about a company that loses one customer and goes out of business because it didn't have any more customers, we wouldn't feel sorry for them because we would say, gee, they should have had a brand that allowed them to sell to other customers. Well, the same goes for you. Personal branding is your way of developing your reputation and putting it out there to the world so that people know about you in the event your situation changes. And this happens a lot these days. It's not just that every job is temporary, that a company might shut down or restructure, but you might change as a person. You might want to move to a different location. You might want to switch industries. You might just want a better job. In order to do those things, you need a personal brand.
All right. We'll just stop the video from here and come back to the slides. Okay, so what are your takeaways from watching that very brief video and talk about personal brand? What are something that came to your mind? Feel free to type your thoughts in the chat. Or I think because we have so many participants, you can unmute yourself, but if you heard someone else talking at the same time, maybe we'll take turns, all right? After watch that brief video about talk about personal brand, how do you think personal brand is connecting to your job seeking as a candidate? Anybody want to chime in?
So a couple of people in the chat are saying you want to leave a lasting impression on the recruiter. You want to stand out against other applicants. Recruiters might remember you more if you make a good first impression. Making yourself distinct and finding yourself a niche. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, those are great answers. Yeah, you guys all get an idea about why you need a personal brand, right? So here's a reflection question. I wanted to bring this question with you as you're listening to the rest, or at least rest, maybe next 5-10 minutes of this presentation. The next question I want to ask you about is what kind of personal characteristic, or what's your personal brand? What do you want your coworkers or employers to know or recognize about you? I want to start to think about that question. You might not have an answer right away, or you may have some great answers right now. So keep that question to yourself. You might hang on to that question after the session as you are practicing your elevator pitch, as you're thinking about how to write your LinkedIn summary, as you're going to interviews. So this is a question I want you to start to think about is what kind of personal characteristic do you want to be remembered by your coworkers, employees, or be recognized? All right, and then we'll talk about competencies. Right, here's a definition about competency. Some of you might already heard about that word in different settings. Some of you might find this is kind of a new lingo for you, right? So the definition of competency, I kind of summarize it from a couple of literature, and you might see slightly different version of it, but the general idea is competencies refer to the knowledge, skills, ability, or other characteristics needed for a person to successfully accomplish certain tasks. Right, so we're just talking about certain tasks, and you can think about, when you go into a job, there's a list of tasks, definitely that's required for people in a certain job. And so think about what are the knowledge, skills, ability, other characteristics required for that. All right, so we first want to introduce the definition of competency. So here I want to talk a bit more about what are some competencies that our employers are looking for in candidates. Right, so before I jump into all these 8, and also you can see from the, hope you can see all, right from the bottom of the page, I also have the, if you just Google NACE career readiness competencies, you probably can find the same thing in a kind of more fully explained format. So when we talk about competency, I want to start to think about all of these competencies, like I write on this page, you have some of it. Some of you have, developed more in one or more of those areas. So some of you have less experience, or you're in the process of developing some of your competencies. You have all of them, right? Just you might be at different developmental stages of, practicing and also like demonstrating or showing those competencies to employers, right? So we'll do a little bit of exercise later on, but first I want to introduce to you like why I'm talking about NACE Career Readiness Competency. NACE stands for National Association for College and Employers. So that's the association for, career services and also campus recruiters. And they did a survey, NACE did a survey. Actually, NACE has been doing this survey for many years. And they ask employers, regardless of the field they are in, the industry they are in, or what kind of candidate, particular like major they are looking for, they ask the recruiters, they survey them and ask them, so what are some key competencies you're looking for in your new hires? And these are their answers, right? So these 8 competency are top competencies that recruiters mention across all fields. They say, hey, these are the skills, these are competency we're looking for in our new hires, right? So first we have, we'll just go over them real quick. And I want you to, like I said, I want you to start to think about, okay, how far am I with this development of this competency? And if you can come up with like, oh, there's something more, there's something I'm planning to do that will help me to get more, develop further with that competency, you can all go into that space, just reflect on your own situation, right? So critical thinking, problem solving, right, really talks about, given a scenario, given certain information, how do you distinguish, how do you, sort through the information? If there's a problem, how do you identify, what's the core of that problem, and how do you propose solution, and maybe also implement the solution and deal with all the, the challenges involved in, identifying the problem, defining the issue, finding a solution, implement a solution. So critical thinking, problem solving, right? And then oral written communication. You can think about, oral communication that goes in so many formats, like you're doing a presentation in front of a class, or, you facilitate a group meeting in your student work, or you think about, in interviews, or if you go to a career fair, like you talk to recruiters, all of these show your own communication competency. And written communication, your resume might be a good example, one that recruiter can see. And also, if you're in a technical field, that you write some technical reports, right? If you are a humanities, social science field, the essays you write, right? So written communication. And also one very important, sometimes overlooked, is like write a professional business email, right? When you communicate with a recruiter, or you write a thank you email after an interview or something, or that LinkedIn message, those are all like shows your written communication skills. Teamwork, collaboration, right? Everyone has, either you choose or you put into teams to work with other people together, you collaborate on the project. And some people are more of, individual contributor, that you do work with a team, but you focus on your own task, and then you see how your task could be integrated like a larger group effort. And some of you may work more closer with your teammates, right? So overall, teamwork, collaboration is also very important. Digital technology, right? I feel the majority of us in this room are probably engineers, right? So tools like MATLAB, AutoCAD, or CATIA, depends on your field, all of these, right? And also include some like data process, data analysis software, things like that. It really depends on your field. The digital technology that's important for one field does not mean like everybody else in other fields might need to have the same thing, right? And leadership. Leadership is one that sometimes got misunderstood by a lot of people, because we often think about leadership as leadership positions, right? You are the president of a club, or you are the lead of something, you have a title. Not necessary. Leadership skills is really just talking about, can you initiate something? Can you motivate others to follow, or, to support your vision? Can you, break through and take risks when things get challenged? You know, a lot of the skills, like can you organize, coordinate, right? A lot of these are leadership skills, and you do not necessarily have a leader like title or role in your organization or in your task to have to develop leadership skills. But leadership skill is really well desired by employers. And professionalism, work ethic. Here I want to mention that a common question that we get from our student is that, you know my job, I know my major is engineering, and but I have some experience, you know, part-time work experience as a cashier, or I work as, you know, as a residential assistant, and I don't know if that's something that's relevant, you know, to my job. And if you do have, you know, if you do have other, you know, experience showing that you have a lot of internship experience you want to include, and you don't have enough space, it's okay for you to sacrifice, you know, those like not as relevant experience. However, if you do need, you know, you have a little bit wide space and you want to talk about that part-time job you do, right? So that's a great opportunity for you to demonstrate your professionalism and work ethic, you know, being punctual, take responsibilities, you know, support your team and deliver what you promised to deliver on time. You know, a lot of these things could show your work ethic and professionalism. And then next two ones I'm going to talk about, one is career management. So this is less of a well-known kind of competency, because the previous ones, at that, when you see that, you kind of know, oh, I know what that is, right? Career management is a little bit confusing, because what career management actually refers to is, do you understand like about your, for example, like your skill set? Do you know what you're good at? You know, do you have some sort of vision about where you're going in the future? For example, I know a lot of engineer students are thinking about, I want to really focus on the technical side of things. You know, so-and-so technique really excites me, and this is what I see myself spending, you know, many years of my professional life devoting to. And some engineer student, on the other hand, thought about, you know, I would like to do some engineering work, maybe transit to, you know, a managerial track some years, you know, 5-10 years down the road. I was to start to do more of the, you know, on the business side and management side. So career management really talks about, you know, you have some sort of idea about what you want. And also, do you understand why you might be a good fit? Like, give some rationale about, you know, I'm really good with people, or I'm really sensitive to those type of, you know, like techniques or, you know, algorithms, things like that. Like, knowing where you want to go and kind of knowing why you want to go there. This does not necessarily refer to, you know, 5 years down the road, I want to be like this particular position in that particular company. When employer asks you about where you see yourself in 5-10 years, they're not looking for that definite answer. It's I will be there, right? They just want to hear about, okay, I have some plan and I know about my skills and I know where I'm going. You know, last one, global intercultural fluency. So this one is important because a lot of times you will be working with, you know, your clients, your business collaborators with your company, or even within your team. You know, you might be working with people from a different background. You know, not necessarily like globally, but it's really talk about, you know, intercultural fluency, intercultural competency. Are you able to work with people who's different? Right, so being able to stand in other people's shoes, understand their needs and communication, right? A lot of those things. So what I want to do is let's see the time. Okay, I want to do a quick activity. Is to let's see, if you open your control bar, you should be able to see something called annotate. Right? If you see annotate, the next thing I want to do is I want to click on stamp. There's a stamp and there are a bunch of stamps. You have arrows, check marks, X, like little stars, heart, and question mark. So I wanted to pick one, whatever, you know, like shape that works best for you, like a star or a heart. What I want to do is, once you click on a stamp, what you can do, I wanted to highlight, like kind of put a little stamp on the competency that you think you already have and developed, and you want to talk about it. You know, when we talk about like personal branding, right? Like how do you want other people to remember about you, right? Just we have just some example, right? There are more competency. These are more just general competency. Great. I see a lot of people putting marks here, stars. Nobody goes with heart. Huh, that's the first time. Okay, cool. Great. Yeah. I see a question. Where's the annotation? It's in the control bar. Yeah. Awesome. And this next one, you don't have to do it, but I want you to think about what is one or a couple of competencies you think you want to be really good at, but you're still working towards it, right? You can put a stamp there. I know we're not going to record the screen. It doesn't mean anything, but I want you to start to engage with the content. And keep a note for yourself. You know, what is something that you want to keep working on and get better at? Yes, you can put your name on it. You found that. Yeah. I really like this function. The first time I learned about this in one of the conferences, I was like, I love it. It's a great way to, great and easy way to interact, right? Okay, we don't have too much time left. As much as I love this activity, what I'm going to do, I'm proceed to the next slide. All right. Need to go back, close my annotation. Here we go. I'm going to clean it. All right, by our stamps. Okay, here we go. And here I want to very briefly talk about, as we thought about what are some competencies that we have, we also want to think about what are some competencies that company, for the particular position, type of job you are applying for. Apparently these general ones, you want to have them, but there are also some kind of more specific to your job. First, you can always research online, and it's one of the easier way to do it. If you check job postings, find 5 to 10 job posting, maybe for intro-level engineering position, if that's what you want, right? And start to highlight the keywords, like what you see here in the key competencies. Start to highlight, what are some things you're looking for. And there are also other keywords, that's within your field of study, it will be like a key skills recommended or competency recommended, required. So I wanted to find 5 to 10 job postings to get started. And I think once you get 10 job postings for the same kind of job from different companies, your data will get saturated a little bit. You probably will get an understanding about the general competencies required for the kind of job you want. And there are some other forum discussions, like Glassdoor and some particular specific, discussion board. I don't know all of them, so you probably need to do a little bit pro, but there's, a lot of people share information online. So that might also be a good way for you to do some research online. And the second one is, I'll just talk about this briefly, is to interview professionals who are in a field that you see yourself going into in the future, right? So you can ask them some questions. I just gave you some simple question to get started with that conversation, learn more about competency. You can ask them, what does a typical day look like in this job? Or you can ask them, what are most important skills and abilities expected for professionals in this position or field? Or you can ask them, what experience or skills you developed in college contribute to your current success in this position? Right, so just give you a little bit example and to get started to think about, okay, if you get a chance to talk to a professional, these are questions you can ask to start to get an idea about, competencies required. Last thing, I want to kind of combine personal brand and also competency together. In your resume, your personal brand comes out through your bullet points. How do you describe your experience? Right, in your cover letter, you are telling a story to the employer why they should hire you, why you would be a good fit for that position, right? So I normally say resume is more about you're listing some facts, and then cover letter, you get a chance to really tell a story to kind of connect the facts together and also tell them about this particular company, right? So everybody knows you're a great person, and now you're telling them why I will be a great candidate for you. An interview, right? So think about, we didn't talk about this too much, but as you start to figure out what kind of personal brand do you want to present yourself to employers, right? What are some good stories to back that up as evidence, right? This experience you have with this team project, or this particular project experience that you participate in your student group, things like that. And networking, right? When you are networking with other people, think about your elevator pitch, that your 30 seconds kind of personal commercial, right? How do you present yourself, and think about that through the personal branding perspective. And I want you to leave time for questions now, and I'll do like 1 minute quick wrap up about CCO services, 2 minutes maybe. Okay, do we have some questions coming in? And so, okay, this might make more sense. So I'll keep talking, and I want to start to, type your questions, send it either to Ray and Carl, or just post it to everyone in the chat. All right, so overview of CCO services. So here, if you go on YouTube and search Purdue CCO, we have a short video on this. It's a 13-minute video. I'm not going to play it here, but what we have is I want to mention, like, I really wanted to look at, if you're thinking about, like, healthcare professional or law as a potential career, you want to check out the pre-professional services part. But for everybody, I want you to check out the digital resources. We have some really cool digital resources here. I'm going to talk about them in a second. And then we also have one-on-one services. If you feel like you want to have a more individualized conversation about some particular questions you have, depends on the complexity of the question, you can either schedule an appointment with us through Boiler Connect, or you can go to our quick chat. It's just like our previous drop-in. They can just show up. That's Monday through Friday, 1 to 4. And you can also schedule a quick chat via Boiler Connect. And we offer a quick chat in person in Young Hall 132 as well. And CCO workshop is like this one that we're doing right now. If you're in a student org and want to request a CCO representative to work with you, you can connect with us. We'll probably share with you about some like existing digital resources first, but also we can do like a Q&A after you watch our pre-recorded video. And our calendar and career events is go to our calendar and check out, company information, session information are there, career fairs, workshops of different kinds. And we're on YouTube, that's Purdue CCO. Last thing, feature digital resources I mentioned. You want to really utilize My CCO this semester, specifically this semester, because everything is going virtual, recruiting efforts are going virtual. So you want to make sure that you have your most updated resume reflected on your My CCO account. Because when you go to career fairs, employer actually have access to students' resume secure in the My CCO database, and employers can do email blasts or invite you to interviews. So you want to make sure you have that. And also for employers who normally cannot make to a career fair or host information session, we always recommend them to post their job on My CCO. So that's kind of the one-stop place where you want to find positions. We also have some resource library about navigating how to use My CCO and also other things. And if you are a first-year student or sophomore, junior, senior, but you don't have much experience building a resume that you really like, I recommend you try UpKey. Those are all listed on our website. UpKey will be a good tool for you to build your first resume draft. And also it has a new elevator pitch module. It's very interactive. It'll ask you a bunch of questions and then help you put them together for a product that's a resume elevator pitch. If you already have a resume, want to get some feedback, I recommend you use VMock. It's a machine learning based resume and it has smart benchmarking with people who are in your category. If you are going to that process interview, check out Big Interview. It has interview tutorial. I watch it, I really like it. It's one of the best interview tutorials out there. It's very clear about what to expect. And also it has a question library and you can do mock interview and record yourself, and those are really helpful. So that's all the content I have for today, and let's go for some questions if you want to stay. Okay, 7:02, not too bad.
So Rose, it looks like a lot of people are wondering about cover letters and how important they are for internships.
So cover letters in general is not required. A resume normally it will be required if you apply for a job. A cover letter, some companies requires and some companies don't. I would say a general rule is if you really want to get a job, you should write a cover letter. And because you will be applying for so many jobs online, so and each cover letter should be unique for the employers that you're applying for that position. So sometimes it requires you to put some time to do a little bit more research, and to tweak your existing cover letter a little bit. And that takes time. And I know especially our engineering student here at Purdue do have a lot of homework and other stuff going on. So my my advice is, if you really want to work for that company, I would recommend you to include a cover letter. If it's more of I'm just trying to submit more application to, to see how, if how many I can get, or I'm not too keen about that, but I think I'll still apply anyway. So those are scenarios you don't necessarily have to have a cover letter. It's good to have one, but if you don't have time, don't worry too much about it. Yeah.
I think there was another question asking whether recruiters looked at research or work experience, and which one rates more highly.
Yeah, and that's a great question, is what are recruiters looking for? I would say recruiters do not necessarily discriminate, like, between, which one is better. Is like the internship better, or is the research experience better, or is it just like, does my volunteer experience doesn't count at all? What about my class projects? So I would say general, the rule is they would expect you to if you have internship, I think the plus for that the recruiter gets is you are probably familiar with some kind of professional communication, how things work in a business organization. However, if you don't have that, don't worry about it. It's really more about those like key competencies that employers are looking for, right? If your volunteer experience or service learning experience, your part-time job gave you the opportunity to develop those competencies that will be required for that job, feel free to include them. They do not necessarily, discriminate one type of experience over the other. It's more about the match. For example, if you're looking for a research relevant position, I would say research experience is more important. If you're looking for more of a I don't know, I just come up something randomly, robotics related experience. And our internship is nothing related to robotics, but you've been involved in first robotics, and you've been doing some robotics project and your extracurricular experience. And I would say these are important. Does that make sense? It's more about the relevancy and how you present it, right? We talk about personal brand, we talk about these competency. You need to show them through your document and through your conversation with them.
So someone else asked if having letters of recommendation would be a smart thing beforehand, or if only a recruiter requests them.
Yeah, that's a great question. So normally a letter recommendation is not a required for like internship and full-time job. Full-time job maybe, internship not always. It's good that you talk to the person, maybe your mentor, your previous supervisor, who can give you a good recommendation letter. So what employers might do is they'll check your references, and when they check your references, it's really more about when you get to the final stage of the interview process, and they just want to do that extra double check. They may call your reference. I mean, recommendation letters might be helpful, but normally it's not required. Yeah, but it might be good if you are looking for a full-time job and they might need someone to be your reference. So communicate with that person beforehand. Let them know that I've applied for this job and I'm expecting, I've got to the final rounds, and would it be okay if I use you as my reference? And help them to know what they want to talk about when, they got this phone call. Because you can let them know this is the kind of position I'm applying for, and these will be the skills they're looking for. So prepare your reference. Yeah. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and Rose, I think that's all the questions that we have. I think you covered everything else well enough that they don't have any more questions.
Awesome. Yeah,
So,
it's been great to talk to you all. I wish I can see you more like in person, everybody, but like with the content covered. But I'm glad we got that little interactive activity. So think about what are the competencies you want to further develop. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Rose. If you guys are interested in practicing your elevator pitches, or getting your LinkedIn profiles reviewed, or just learning more about how to navigate the fair, you can check out all of the other links for the second half of the event on our webpage. Thank you.
And I will stay a little bit for extra questions if you want.
Yeah, looks like everyone got their questions out during the session.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really good.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I think that's it then. Ray, I'll record it and then send it to Maddie afterwards. Oh, wait a second. We have one more. If a career fair event is limited to juniors and seniors, is there any way for freshmen to get a slot? That was a great question. So the way it works this year, and it's a little bit more difficult because it's virtual, but all the companies have like certain requirements for positions that they're willing to hire into. And some of those requirements are that you be like a junior or senior, unfortunately. So for those companies, just because they do have a limited number of recruiters, a limited number of like time slots, unfortunately, there's no way for freshmen to get a time slot with them. So I mean, we know it's not ideal, but this is the best we can do given the circumstances. So hope that answers your question, Lexi.
Yeah, and I will add to that is that if the company has information session, then go to the information session and talk to them over there.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, cool. Another one.
So, do we have a question?
So, yes, someone's wondering where they can go to have their resume reviewed. Yeah.
Yes, so that's a good question. So for a one-on-one resume review, what you want to do is go on something called Quick Chat. And let me share my screen again.
And so once you understand why personal grading is so important, why you need it, then you can start to focus on.
Sorry. So if you go to the CCO website and you go to where, I might be not doing the most efficient way to explain this. So if you go to what we offer, if you want to in-person review, this is what you want to do is a quick chat. You click on make an appointment here. And what happens is that if you go in Boiler Connect to make a quick chat appointment, you need to go in between 1 to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. That way that link is open and we have people ready. Or if you want to go in person to Young 132, but will only allow for, I think, 7 people in total in that room. That includes our reviewers. So that probably means like 3 students can be in the room at the same time. So that will be one way that, schedule a virtual quick chat via Boiler Connect Monday through Friday, 1 to 4 p.m. Or you can go for, in person. And another way to do that is something I mentioned earlier, is the VMOC. So VMOC, you can find VMOC. I think there are also other places on our website we host VMOC, but here's VMOC. Like I said, it's kind of machine learning based resume critique tool. It kind of gives you very detailed feedback. Sometimes we think it's more detailed than what we gave you, but a caveat is it also give you a score. Don't mind about the score. That score it could mean something, it could mean nothing. Depends on if you get a score that's above 70, I would say it's good enough. Don't try to get 100, and it will be. It doesn't mean a lot. Yeah. Do this fail quickly. Believe chat the editor wasn't able to find it. Yes and no. I was on a quick chat last Friday, and we only have 6 people for the whole 3 hours. So I would say for my experience last Friday, it was not too busy. But as we approach IR, based on our experience from previous years, it will get busier and busier. Yeah. But if you want, if you haven't tried VMOC, I would recommend you try VMOC because VMOC is really good. And what I really like about VMOC is that it doesn't really substitute. Like you say, I did VMOC, I don't need to go in person, but VMOC gives you some really good insight. They can bring very specific question when you talk to a career coach or a peer consultant. Yeah. Oh, we have a question about LinkedIn review session, I guess.
Yeah, so this should be the wrap up for the presentation. So I would say try doing it again. If it doesn't work the second time, then we can troubleshoot from there. But this there should be a separate link for the LinkedIn review breakout rooms.
Okay, I think that's probably all that we have.